Hello, we're going to be doing our cultural presentation on Australia. I'm Miss Tucker.
I'm Mr. Scott.
So going over the history and background of Australia, Australians first immigrated onto the continent more than 40,000 years ago with the colonization of Southeast Asia by European powers. Australia's northern reaches were constantly visited by Dutch traders. However, the rest of Australia went largely untouched until 1770, when British explorer Captain James Cook navigated Australia's east coast, naming in New South Wales under the British Crown. After James Cook's discovery, Captain Arthur Phillip led a fleet in 1788 to begin a new British Crown colony in New South Wales. He landed at Sydney Cove and immediately began developing the area's expeditions of Australian coastline led to more colonies in the following years, including Tasmania in 1825, South Australia in 1836, Victoria in 1851, and Queensland in 1859. Go to the next slide. Australia's population grew throughout the arrival of free settlers. A population explosion occurred during the gold rush of the 1850s. The separate colonies voted to become a British Dominion, and Australia officially became a unified nation on January 1st, 1901. After Federation, Australia's economy thrived with its abundance of natural resources, but was limited by lack of manpower. After World War II, in which Australia fought on several fronts, a large influx of Europeans immigrated into the country. This was the beginning of Australia's modern wave of migrants, which also included Asians and Africans over the next 50 years. People can find out more about Australia's history at Sydney's Australian Museum and the Australian National Maritime Museum. Plenty of colonial remnants are found throughout Australia, including the spectacular Port Arthur historical site, which is a well-preserved colonial settlement complete with airy convict quarters. So regarding characteristics of our culture, regarding language, Australia has no official language. English has been entrenched as the de facto national language since European settlement. Australian English is a major variety of language with a distinctive pronunciation and differs from other varieties of English in grammar and spelling. According to the 2016 census, English is the only language spoken 73% of the population. The next most common languages that are spoken are Mandarin, which is 2.5%, Arabic, which is 1.4%, Cantonese, 1.2%, Vietnamese, 1.2%, Italian, 1.2%, Greek, 1%, Hindi, 0.7%, Spanish, 0.6%, Punjabi, 0.6%. A large proportion of first and second generation migrants are bilingual in Australia. This country's flag is a great representation of symbolism. The flag has three elements of a blue background: the Union Jack, the Commonwealth Star, and the Southern Cross. Below the Union Jack is a white Commonwealth or Federation Star. It is 7 points representing the unity of the 6 states and the territories of the Commonwealth of Australia. So some customs and traditions regarding Australia would be the first one is Boxing Day Test cricket. While Boxing Day is comparable to America's Black Friday, Australians choose to skip going out and shopping like we would in America, and they spend the day after Christmas on the couch, air conditioned turned up high, watching and soon after falling asleep in front of the Boxing Day test. Another one would be small talk with cabbies. So if you want to catch a taxi by yourself, usually Australians will sit up front with the taxi driver and have small talk throughout the entire ride. And some Australians might say, if you do not do this with your taxi drivers, then you need to reevaluate your life in Australia. Another tradition they have is meat pies at the footy, which, like baseball games in America with hot dogs, meat pies go hand in tomato sauce smeared hand with a game of footy. You either love them or not like them, and there's no denying the importance of a 4 and 20 meat pie. Lastly, the muck-up day. While not condoning the Coppergate prank or putting the principal's car up for sale, Muck Day is a rite of passage for all seniors in high schools. So your 12th year as a student, it's kind of like a day where seniors around responsibly and have fun, water gun fights, do little pranks. It's just a really fun time. Next slide. All right, another tradition would be schoolies. So once the school year is ended and all of Muck Day and other celebrations have ended, graduates go to a week-long holiday known as schoolies, a tradition since 1970. Schoolies symbolize freedom and having fun. Another one would be Triple J Hottest 100. If you're at a picnic, pool party, hanging out with friends, at a barbecue in Australia on Australian Day, someone switches on the radio to any station but Triple J, then kick them out, as they would say. Millions of listeners tune in annually on Australia Day to the Triple J Hottest 100 station to find out which song has become voted number 1. Another tradition they have would be Bunnings Sausage Sizzle. There's a Bunnings warehouse and a hardware shop that sells just about everything for home renovation and also sausages. So if you ever want to go get a sausage, head down to Bunnings warehouse, and they have awesome ones. Another tradition that Australia has would be bare feet at the Melbourne Cup. So because the most prejudiced horse race in Australia wouldn't be complete without a horde of barefoot women staggering out of Flemington Racecourse, stilettos in their hand, heels in their hand, any type of shoes, no shoes at all. The best part is the local news always broadcasts this tradition every year for the entertainment of people at home. Lastly, a few other traditions and customs they have would be Maxis Run. At the end of the night out, you just go get some fast food. Doesn't have to be anywhere nice, and doesn't matter how the day went. It's kind of just like just relaxing and just going to grab a quick bite to eat. Two Up. Two Up was popularized by the Diggers in World War I. It involves tossing 2 coins in the air and gambling on how much they might fall. In Victoria, this game is illegal on every single day except in Anzac Day. While in New South Wales, the game is legal, not only on Anzac Day, but also other commemorative days. Lastly, Christmas seafood. So while in the Northern Hemisphere and in America, we might have turkey and mashed potatoes and such, in Australia, they sometimes have seafood as their dinner or lunch for Christmas.
So some important holidays regarding the culture of Australia. So public holidays in Australia refer to the holidays recognized in law. Although they're declared on a state and territory basis, they comprise a mixture of nationality celebrated days and holidays exclusive to individual people. So public holidays function as non-working days of workers, generally receiving a full paid leave, independent of the annual leave. Those working on public holidays receive an additional penalty rates of pay. Where they fall on a weekend, public holidays are generally declared in lieu for the following Monday. Statutory holidays are based on varying religious, cultural, and civic observations. Christian celebrations like Christmas and Easter are some of the more significant ones. Labor Day is also observed in each state and territory, although it's varied in date. There are 2 significant national holidays, which is Australia Day on the 26th of January and Anzac Day, which we talked about earlier, which is the 25th of April. They're nationwide public holidays. When a public holiday occurs on a Friday or Monday, the 3-day periods are colloquially known as a long weekend. So some facts and statistical information regarding our culture. The population of Australia has exploded in the past few decades. In the 70s, it was sitting around 12.5 million. Today, the population is over 25 million, so it's a big population jump in this last 50 years. Today in Australia, 26% of Australians are born overseas, with the most immigrants being from England and China. 90% of the population lives within 100 meters or 100 kilometers of the coast. Most of the country is uninhabitable. Like the Australian outback is not really very hospitable, so almost everybody lives really close to the coast. Australia is a very diverse culture with over 300 languages spoken. They have one of the oldest civilizations known to mankind, which is the Aboriginals, and fewer than 3% of Australia's population today is made up of Aboriginals. But it's one of the most, or it's one of the oldest civilizations left. I think they started like 40,000 years ago. They came to Australia. The biggest religion in Australia is Christianity, with 52% of the population following. Nothing is really close. There's a lot of other smaller religions, but Christianity is definitely the biggest religion there. So, some implications in schools regarding our culture. The Australians believe in having a high quality self confidence, optimism, high self esteem, a commitment to personal excellence as a basis for their potential life roles as family members and workforce members. They need to have the capacity to exercise judgment and responsibilities in matters of morality, ethics, and social justice in society, and the capacity to make sense of their world, to think about how things got to be the way they are, and to make rational, informed decisions about their own lives, and to accept responsibility for their own actions. So, personal responsibility is a huge part of Australian culture. Is taking responsible for your own actions and how they impact other people. Volunteer work is very important to Australians, as 38% of the population reports doing volunteer work in their free time. In comparison, I think the U.S. and Sri Lanka and Bangladesh were up there as some of the highest countries, around like 44 to 45% reporting. So Australia is pretty high up there at 38%. The Australian schooling system promotes teachers as leaders, but also as guides to help students along their journey to be physically competent. The Australian schooling system, especially physical education, is moving away from the individual teaching and moving towards a more, or it's moving away from the group teaching and moving towards more individualized teaching with student-led teaching, where the students' goals are being met and their individual goals, their individual like they each have like separate levels of competency in phys ed, and so it's not so much as like the same standard for everybody. The nine values of or important values in Australian schooling is care and compassion towards others and towards yourself, doing your best in life, in school, and outside of school. A thing called fair go, which is pursue and protect the common good, where all people are treated fairly for a just society. Freedom, celebrating the many freedoms and rights that you get as an Australian citizen. It's one of the more free countries in the world. Honesty and trustworthiness, integrity, like living with a high moral code and not lying and being like disrespectful towards others and stuff like that. And then the next one is being respectful, respect. So giving respect, showing respect to your elders, to your peers. Responsibility, being responsible for yourself. Personal responsibility is a big part of Australian culture. And then understanding, being understanding of other circumstances and taking into consideration their thoughts and feelings. So some physical activities, so some physical activity implications regarding our culture. Popular sports and leisure in Australia include rugby, easily the most popular sport in Australia. A lot of their holidays revolve around rugby. Cricket, another big one. Swimming is taught earlier in school than in the U.S. It's a big part of Australian culture. Volleyball, surfing, running and cycling, and going to the beach. As you can tell, a lot of they have a lot of water sports and water activities because everyone is so close to the beach. Rugby is the most popular sport in Australia. It's a team sport, relies on every member to be successful. It's similar to a lot of other team sports in that it teaches sacrifice, cooperation, and hard work to reach team goals. It's not an individual sport, it's a team sport. Surfing is another big part of Australian culture. 1 out of 10 Australians report, surfing or being a part of surfing culture. And that in surfing, you got to be patient, dedicated, disciplined, to be a good surfer and to enjoy surfing. So that's about it for our information. Here are some community resources about our culture. If someone wanted to know more about it. So this first link talks about 11 key points in Australian culture. Those are more just interesting facts and kind of quirky things about Australia that were interesting. And then this Britannica link Gives a really good in-depth review of everything from like the fine arts to recreation and sport to like the do's and don'ts if you're traveling there or visiting there or living there. So yeah, those are two good resources if you want to learn more about Australia. And here's our 5 peer-reviewed journals for our presentation, and that's all we got. So thanks guys for listening.
Thanks, guys. Hope you have a great day.